YouTube, this is the Working Investor. In this video, we're going to talk about an interesting month that this is going to be with the Yieldmax distributions. The distributions may be a lot richer this month compared to most months, and I'm going to explain why. We're also going to talk about the new Yieldmax fund that just launched today, and we're going to talk about a review of Retire on Dividends interview with Dave Mazza, the guy from Roundhill, and some really cool products coming out, in the short future. Let's get into the video. So let's first talk about Yieldmax. So right now, I'm sure a lot of you know that the Yieldmax funds, they have their funds staggered, Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D. We won't talk about the weekly one, which is YMAX, YMAG, which, it's weekly. But let's talk about the staggered funds. All the funds used to pay out what we call Group A, usually. This month is interesting. It's a bit of a unicorn month because this is the month where everything is kind of transitioning over. And anybody who has Group B have a delay of 1 extra week of dividends. Group C have a 2-week delay, and Group D have a 3-week delay of getting their dividends, which they normally would get it during the Group A, because we used to all just have one time, so they staggered it. But my hypothesis is, and we're going to see how this plays out, is that Group B that has an extra week of trading, so the dividend distribution will represent 5 weeks of trading, not 4 weeks of trading. Group C would be representative of 6 weeks, and Group D would be representative of 7 weeks. This is my hypothesis because in my mind it makes sense because they haven't paid a distribution. I would imagine they pay pretty much the premium that they received. So what this does is that, in a way I would anticipate a bigger, like a juicier dividend, especially Group D payers, because it's built up potential energy for like some 7 weeks. But then also people who are looking to buy into the fund and they find that the price is a little too rich, they have a really good time to get in on ex-div date, or they can just get the dividends and then just use the dividends to buy in on the lower price. So it's just some interesting things that's going to be chopping a little bit this month. And it's only pertinent to this month because once we go into the following 4-week cycle of Group A, B, C, and D, they will just be reflecting 4 weeks. Another thing to bear in mind is that they literally would be representing 4 weeks, which is 28 days, 28 calendar days, which is approximately 20 trading days. Normally, classically, when we had the once a month payment, it would represent a full month, which typically sometimes could be 30 days, 31 days. So you may have 1 or 2 extra days of extra trading days. So the dividends may be slightly or maybe similar or slightly what you would expect if you adjust it for IV. Of course, the dividend distributions vary based on market environment and implied volatility and what they're doing is a lot of variables. But overall, if you adjust it for those variables, I would say it's going to be roughly the same. With that said, let's talk about the new fund that they are coming out with, where they just came out. They just launched it. It's PLTY. I'm currently offline right now. Palantir. Sounds like poultry. Basically, they just launched it around $50. Yes, Jay did mention that the new funds coming out in Yieldmax, they will start, instead of the classical $20 start price, they will start at $50. They just want to give themselves a larger buffer if they would have to avoid reverse splits, and if they would have, it would take a lot longer to get to those reverse splits. And, time will tell, what the dividend distributions will be like. We'll see how this fund plays out. Finally, we'll talk about the ROD's interview with Dave Mazza. So yesterday, ROD interviewed Dave Mazza from Roundhill. And one of the interesting things that he mentioned is some upcoming funds that are coming out soon that they filed with the SEC. And he basically mentioned that he wants to use, people have been asking Yieldmax to do weekly. I mean, I'm okay, whatever. People have been talking to Yieldmax people like Jay, Professor Chelly, about doing weekly payments for the single stock ETFs. So what they've done is they've staggered it. But I think Dave was mentioning that some of the funds that they filed with the SEC, if I'm not mistaken, if I understand correctly from the interview, they want to do weekly. They want to be able to have weekly payments on single stock ETFs. If weekly really matters for you, that would be something you'd be interested in. If it doesn't matter, if you're happy with monthly, that doesn't really make such a big difference. But what I'm very interested is to see how, when these funds would launch, how they manage their funds. Do they have a good risk to reward ratio? Do they help? Are they able to give a nice dividend and still preserve the NAV? Time will tell. I'm more curious to see how these funds perform. But that's just something interesting, and time will tell. Anyways, this is the Working Investor over and out. I hope you guys have a wonderful trading day.